My name is Margaret Ann Sullivan, and I'm about to tell you how my own son tried to rob me blind at my kitchen table on a Tuesday morning in September. But here's the thing nobody tells you about betrayal. It doesn't announce itself with thunder and lightning. It walks in through your front door, pours itself a cup of coffee, and smiles at you like everything's perfectly normal. "Mom, your paycheck goes to my account now." That's what my son Derek said to me. Not asked, not suggested, just stated it like he was announcing the weather forecast. I was 62 years old, sitting in the kitchen of the modest 3-bedroom house I'd bought with my own money, wearing the robe I'd owned for 10 years because I'd always believed in saving rather than spending. And my 38-year-old son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father decided fatherhood wasn't his vibe and disappeared to Colorado with his yoga instructor, was telling me he was taking control of my finances. "It's for your own good, Mom." Derek stirred cream into his coffee with that easy confidence he'd always had, the same confidence that got him through college on my dime while I worked the day shift at the hospital as a nurse and cleaned offices 3 nights a week. "You're getting older. Things slip through the cracks. I've got the financial background to manage this properly." Financial background? He worked in insurance sales. Not exactly Warren Buffett, but he said it like he was doing me the biggest favor in the world. I looked at him sitting there in his expensive suit, the one he bought last month, now that I think about it, right around the time I mentioned my retirement account had hit $200,000. Funny timing, that. "Derek, honey, I appreciate the concern, but I've been managing my own money for 40 years. "Exactly." He leaned back in his chair. 40 years of just getting by. Don't you want to finally relax? Let me optimize your investments, consolidate your accounts. You could be earning so much more. There was something in his tone. Something that made my nursing instincts kick in. That sixth sense you developed after decades of watching patients and knowing when something's off even before the monitors start beeping. But this was my son. The baby I rocked through colic. The toddler I taught to read. The teenager I defended when he got caught cheating on that geometry test because he was stressed and made a mistake. The young man I co-signed that car loan for when his credit wasn't good enough and then made the payments myself when he forgot for 6 months straight. So I smiled. I poured him more coffee. And I said the words that would change everything. "Okay, sweetheart, if you really think it's best." His face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? That's great, Mom. So smart. I'll bring the paperwork by tomorrow. Just some simple authorization forms. Super easy." He left 20 minutes later giving me that quick kiss on the forehead, the kind that don't really mean anything. Just a gesture you make because it's expected. I stood at the window and watched his BMW pull out of my driveway. BMW. On an insurance salesman's salary. The coffee in my cup had gone cold. I dumped it in the sink and stared at my reflection in the window. 62 years old. Gray in hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Laugh lines around my eyes from years of forcing smiles through exhaustion, and hands that were starting to show age spots despite the lotion I religiously applied. Getting older. Things slip through the cracks. Well, sugar, there was about to be a whole lot of slipping, but not the kind Derek was expecting. I pulled out my laptop. Yes, I had a laptop, and yes, I knew how to use it, despite what my son apparently thought, and logged into my bank account. I checked it just last week, but something was nagging at me. That nurse's intuition wouldn't shut up. The main screen loaded. Checking account. $3,847.23. Normal. Savings account. $12,043.67. Normal. Retirement account. Click. Loading. $47,329.81. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, refreshed the page. $47,329.81. That couldn't be right. 2 months ago, it had been $197,000. I checked it religiously because I was planning to retire next year at 63 and finally take that trip to Ireland my mother had always dreamed of. The small $330 difference, market drift and routine fees, close enough to confirm the real problem. Then my stomach dropped. My hands were shaking as I clicked on transaction history. Withdrawal. $25,000, July 15th. Withdrawal. $30,000, August 3rd. Withdrawal. $45,000, August 28th. Withdrawal. $50,000, September 1st. $150,000. Gone. In less than 3 months. And every single withdrawal had been made at a branch across town, a branch I had never been to in my entire life. The laptop screen blurred as my vision went dark around the edges, not from tears, from pure, ice-cold rage. Because I knew exactly who had made those withdrawals. I knew who had access to my account information. I knew who I'd given my debit card to just for emergencies 6 months ago when his wallet got stolen and he needed gas money. My son hadn't come over for coffee to suggest taking over my finances. He'd come to make it official, to get my permission for something he'd already been doing for months, to legitimize the theft by having me sign papers that would give him legal access to finish taking everything I had left. I closed the laptop very slowly, very carefully, because if I moved too fast, I might throw it through the window. Okay, Derek, you want to play a financial advisor? Let's play. But I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to call him and scream. I wasn't going to do anything that would let him know I'd discovered what he'd done. No, I was going to be smart about this. I was going to be patient. And I was going to make him wish he never learned how to spell direct deposit. Quick thing. If you want to see Derek get what's coming to him, hit subscribe now. Because what Margaret does next is absolutely brutal. Don't miss it. Now, back to the revenge. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those withdrawal amounts scrolling past like credits at the end of a very bad movie. $150,000. That wasn't just money. That was 15 years of double shifts. That was every birthday I gave myself a grocery store cake instead of going out to dinner. That was the cruise I didn't take, the car I didn't buy, the kitchen I didn't remodel. That was my freedom, my retirement, my future. And my son had stolen it the way you'd steal cookies from a jar, casually and without a second thought. By 6 a.m., I was dressed and in my car. By 7 a.m., I was sitting in the parking lot of First National Bank when they unlocked the doors. I need to speak with a manager. It's urgent. Maria Santos, according to her name tag, must have seen something in my face because she didn't ask questions. 5 minutes later, I was sitting in a small office across from Thomas Chen, branch manager. Mrs. Sullivan, how can I help you today? I opened my folder. I'd printed everything at 5 a.m., and slid the transaction history across his desk. I need to know how these withdrawals were made. I didn't make them. I've never even been to the Riverside branch where they originated. Thomas's expression shifted from polite interest to concern as he scanned the pages. He tapped something into his computer, frowned, typed more.
Mrs. Sullivan, according to our records, these withdrawals were made using your debit card and PIN number, in person, with ID verification. Then someone stole my identity. Do you still have your debit card? I pulled out my wallet and showed him. There it was, right where it had been for months. Except, wait. I looked closer. The numbers were right. The name was right. But something was off. The magnetic strip looked newer than the rest of the card, less worn. Mr. Chen, I said slowly, is it possible someone duplicated my card? He examined it under his desk lamp. His jaw tightened. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm going to need to put a freeze on your account immediately and file a fraud report. This card has been compromised. Someone made a copy. I know who. The words came out flat and cold. Thomas looked up, startled. It's my son, Derek Sullivan. I gave him my card 6 months ago for an emergency. He must have made a copy before returning it. Thomas's face went through several expressions: shock, sympathy, professional neutrality. Ma'am, if you're certain, we need to involve law enforcement. This is felony theft and identity fraud. Not yet. I held up my hand. I need you to do something for me first. Pull up all the information on these transactions. Dates, times, security footage if you have it. Everything. And I need it in writing. Mrs. Sullivan, please, just trust me. Something in my voice must have convinced him, so he nodded. Give me an hour. I spent that hour in the bank's waiting area watching people come and go. Young couples opening their first joint account. College students depositing checks from the parents. An elderly man shuffling up to cash his Social Security check.
Normal people doing normal things with their money. Their money that was actually theirs. Not stolen by the people who were supposed to love them most. When Thomas called me back, he had a thick folder. Everything's here. Timestamps, security footage stills, even the signature cards from each transaction. He paused. Mrs. Sullivan, I pulled up the footage. The person making these withdrawals, it's definitely a younger man. Tall, brown hair, well-dressed. The stills show him flashing a competent fake ID, good enough to slide past a busy teller. That's my son. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I took the folder. Just make sure your records are thorough. I'm going to need them. My next stop was the law office of Patricia Montgomery, a woman I'd met at a hospital fundraiser 3 years ago. She'd given me her card, said if I ever needed anything to call. I'd tucked that card in my wallet and forgotten about it. Until now. Margaret, come in. Patricia was in her 50s, sharp-featured with silver hair cut in a precise bob. Her office smelled like leather and expensive coffee. What brings you here? I handed her the bank folder. I need to know what my legal options are, and I need to know if what I'm planning is going to work. She read through everything, her expression growing harder with each page. Finally, she looked up. Your son stole $150,000 from you using identity fraud. That's a Class C felony in this state. He's looking at 2 to 10 years in prison and mandatory restitution. I don't want him in prison. Patricia raised an eyebrow. May I ask why not? Because prison is too easy. 3 meals a day, cable TV, and he's out in 5 years for good behavior? No. I want him to understand what he did. Really understand. I want consequences that last longer than a prison sentence. A slow smile spread across Patricia's face. Oh, I like you. Tell me what you're thinking. I told her. All of it. The plan that had been forming in my head since 6 a.m., refined and polished during that hour in the bank waiting room. When I finished,
Patricia was actually laughing. It's brilliant! Absolutely brilliant! And completely legal! She pulled out a notepad. Here's what we're gonna need. I left her office 2 hours later with a briefcase full of documents and a court date scheduled for 3 weeks from now. 3 weeks to gather more evidence. 3 weeks to set the trap. 3 weeks for Derek to think he'd gotten away with it. That afternoon, Derek texted me. Got the paperwork. Swinging by around 7? I texted back. Perfect, honey. I'll make your favorite pot roast. I made the pot roast, mashed potatoes too, apple pie for dessert, the whole domestic scene. When Derek arrived, he had a leather portfolio under his arm and that same easy smile. Smells amazing, Mom. You're the best. Anything for my boy, I said sweetly, so sweetly. We ate dinner. He told me about his day, some deal he'd closed, some client he'd impressed. I nodded and asked questions and played the part of the proud, slightly dotty mother who was just so grateful her successful son was taking time out of his busy schedule to help her. After pie, he pulled out the papers. Okay, so this is really simple. Just sign here, here, and here. He pointed to highlighted signature lines. This gives me power of attorney over your financial accounts. I can manage everything, make investments, pay your bills, make your life easier. I picked up the pen, held it over the first signature line. Derek watched me with barely contained excitement. I set the pen down. You know what, honey? I've been thinking. I should probably read through all this first, make sure I understand what I'm signing. His smile flickered. Mom, it's really just standard stuff, legal jargon, nothing to worry about. Oh, I'm sure, but you know me. I like to be thorough. How about you leave these with me and I'll look them over this week? We can make it official next Tuesday. I could see him calculating, weighing the risk of pushing too hard against the risk of giving me time to think. Sure, Mom, whatever makes you comfortable. Next Tuesday works great. After he left, I sat at my kitchen table with those unsigned papers spread out in front of me. Power of attorney, complete access, the legal right to take everything I had and leave me with nothing, and there wouldn't be a damn thing I could do about it once I signed. But I hadn't signed. And in 3 weeks, Derek was going to discover that his mother wasn't quite as stupid as he'd been counting on. The next morning, I went back to Patricia's office with Derek's unsigned papers. She reviewed them with the intensity of a surgeon examining x-rays. He went for the full power of attorney. Not just financial, medical, too. Margaret, if you'd signed this, he could have had you declared incompetent and institutionalized. She looked up, her eyes hard. He wasn't planning to just take your money. He was planning to take your freedom. The words hung in the air like smoke. I'd known Derek had stolen from me, but this? This was darker than theft. This was a plan to erase me completely. There's more, Patricia said, sliding a document across her desk. I had my investigator pull Derek's financial records, public information, court filings, that sort of thing. Margaret, your son is in serious trouble. I scanned the pages. Credit card debt, $87,000. Car loan, $52,000. Mortgage, $475,000 on a house he'd told me he bought mostly cash after some great investments. Student loans, $34,000. Student loans I thought I'd paid off by working those night shifts. He never paid them, Patricia said quietly. He took the money you gave him for student loans and spent it on other things. Then he just didn't pay. The loans went into default, destroyed his credit, so he started using yours. Using my what? She pulled out another sheet. 3 credit cards in your name. Total balance, $47,000. A home equity line of credit against your house, $30,000. A personal loan from Prestige Bank, $15,000. The room tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of the desk. That's not $150,000. I said, my voice sounded far away. That's $150,000 plus another $92,000. He's stolen almost $250,000 from me? At minimum, we're still finding accounts. I stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the parking lot where normal people were getting into their normal cars to drive to their normal jobs. Why? The word came out broken. I gave him everything. I worked myself to exhaustion for him. Why wasn't it enough? Because it was never about the money, Patricia said. It's about entitlement. He's convinced himself he deserves this, that you owe him for the childhood he had, for the father who left, for every perceived hardship. In his mind, he's not stealing. He's just taken what's rightfully his. I turned back from the window. Can we still do it? The plan? Oh, we can do it, Patricia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile, but I have a better idea. A plot twist, if you will. We're gonna let him think he won, Patricia explained, spreading documents across the conference table. You're gonna sign the power of attorney papers. What? Patricia, hear me out. We create a separate account, a trust account in your name that he doesn't know about. We move your remaining legitimate assets there. The accounts he thinks he's getting access to, we'll leave just enough to make it look real, maybe $5,000 total. But he'll have legal control of accounts with no money. Meanwhile, we document every move he makes, every transfer, every purchase, every lie. And then, she leaned forward, then we take him to court with ironclad evidence of financial exploitation, elderly abuse, fraud, and theft. But here's the beautiful part. He'll have already signed documents as your power of attorney, which means he had a legal fiduciary duty to act in your best interest. Every dollar he spends becomes a violation of that duty. It transforms petty theft into a betrayal of legal trust. Remember, a power of attorney is revocable, and we'll have an injunction drafted to freeze activity the moment we file. I sat down slowly. So we give him just enough rope to hang himself. Exactly. And we document everything. By the time we're done, he won't be able to claim confusion or misunderstanding. It will be crystal clear that he knew exactly what he was doing. When do we start? Patricia checked her watch. Well, it's 10 a.m. on Wednesday. How does next Tuesday work for you? Derek arrived at 6 p.m. sharp next Tuesday, leather portfolio in hand, that same confident smile on his face. So, Mom, did you have a chance to look over those papers? I did, honey. And you know what? I'm getting older and things are slipping through the cracks. I'd love your help managing everything. His smile widened. That's great, Mom. Really great. You're making such a smart decision. I pulled out the papers, signed them. Every single page. Derek watched my signature appear on line after line with barely contained glee. When I finished, He actually exhaled in relief. Perfect. Okay, so I'll get these filed tomorrow and we can start the transition. I'm thinking we should consolidate everything into one account. Simpler to manage. Whatever you think is best, sweetheart. And, Mom, you might see some activity on the accounts over the next few weeks. Don't worry about it. I'm just moving things around, optimizing. All part of the plan. I trust you completely. Those 4 words, I watched them hit him like permission, like absolution, like the keys to a kingdom he thought he'd conquered.
He left whistling. I waited until his car was gone, then pulled out my phone and texted Patricia. He took the bait. Her response came immediately. Cameras are rolling. Let the documentary begin. Because that's what this was now, a documentary. Every account Derek thought he controlled had been set up with detailed logging. Every transaction would be tracked, time-stamped, photographed. Patricia had even hired a private investigator to follow him. For the next 2 weeks, I watched my son steal from accounts that had been specifically designed to catch him. Day 3, $4,000 transferred out. Security footage showed him at an electronics store buying a 75-inch TV. Day 5, $2,000 ATM withdrawal. Investigators' photos showed him at an upscale steakhouse with a blonde woman who definitely wasn't his wife, or so I believed then. Day 8, $1,500 transferred to D. Sullivan Personal. Bank records showed this was his personal credit card payment. Day 12, the remaining $500 withdrawn. Footage showed him buying designer sunglasses. 12 days. That's how long it took Derek to drain the accounts he thought contained my life savings. 12 days to prove exactly who he was. On day 13, my phone rang. Mom? Derek's voice sounded strained. Hey, so I'm looking at the accounts and they're showing a lower balance than I expected. Did you make any large purchases recently? I almost laughed. The audacity, the sheer audacity of this man to steal everything and then call me asking about purchases? No, honey. Remember, you're managing everything now. I haven't touched the accounts at all. Silence. Long, uncomfortable silence. Right, yeah, okay, must be some kind of bank error. I'll look into it. I'm sure you will, sweetheart. After I hung up, I permitted myself a small smile. Derek was beginning to realize something was wrong. The accounts he'd been stealing from should have had nearly $50,000 in them based on my last statements. But they'd only had $8,000. And now they had nothing. Which meant somewhere, somehow, $200,000 plus had disappeared. Derek was about to learn what it felt like to be on the other side of theft. But first, there was a court date to attend. The morning of the court hearing, I wore my best Navy suit, the one I'd bought for my nursing school graduation 40 years ago and had tailored 3 times since because I refused to waste money on new clothes. I tied my hair back in a neat bun, put on minimal makeup, looked at myself in the mirror. I looked exactly like what I was, a 62-year-old woman who'd worked hard her entire life and deserved better than what her son had given her. Patricia met me outside the courthouse. Ready? More than ready? We walked into family court, courtroom 3B. Derek was already there with his lawyer, some slick-looking guy in an expensive suit that probably cost more than my car payment. Derek's face when he saw me was priceless. Confusion, then fear, then that fake smile sliding into place. Mom, what are you doing here?
I thought you were working today. Took the day off, honey. Seemed important. The bailiff called us to order. Judge Rebecca Morrison presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. We're here regarding the matter of Sullivan versus Sullivan, she said, looking at the case file. Ms. Montgomery, you filed a petition for emergency injunction. Patricia stood. Yes, Your Honor, my client, Margaret Sullivan, is petitioning for immediate revocation of power of attorney granted to her son, Derek Sullivan, on the grounds of financial exploitation and elderly abuse. Derek's lawyer shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is absurd. My client was given legal power of attorney. He's been managing his mother's affairs exactly as requested. This seems like a case of buyer's remorse. Let her speak, counselor, Judge Morrison said dryly. Patricia opened her briefcase. Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit A. Bank records showing $150,000 withdrawn from Margaret Sullivan's retirement account in the 3 months prior to power of attorney being granted. Withdrawals made by Derek Sullivan using a passable fake ID. Exhibit B, security footage from First National Bank showing Derek Sullivan making these withdrawals using a passable fake ID. Exhibit C, records from 3 credit cards opened in Margaret Sullivan's name without her knowledge or consent, totaling $47,000 in fraudulent charges. Exhibit D, Your Honor, Derek's lawyer interrupted. Even if these allegations were true, and we dispute them, they occurred before power of attorney was granted. Once my client had legal authority, Exhibit D, Patricia continued smoothly, is documentation of every transaction made after power of attorney was granted. Over the course of 12 days, Derek Sullivan withdrew or transferred every remaining dollar from the accounts he was supposed to be managing on his mother's behalf. $8,000 total, gone, spent on personal purchases, including a television, restaurant meals, credit card payments, and luxury goods. She pulled out more documents, receipts, photographs, time-stamped security footage. Your Honor, a power of attorney carries with it a fiduciary duty, a legal obligation to act in the best interest of the principal. Derek Sullivan had that duty, and he violated it spectacularly. The POA is revocable, and we had an injunction prepared to protect these accounts the moment we filed. Judge Morrison was reading through the exhibits. Her expression grew colder with each page. Mr. Sullivan, did you or did you not use your mother's debit card to withdraw $150,000 from her retirement account prior to being granted power of attorney? Derek's face had gone pale. His lawyer whispered something to him urgently. Your Honor, my mother gave me permission to... Did she give you permission to open credit cards in her name? No, but did she give you permission to take out a home equity line against her house? Your Honor, I can explain. I'm sure you can, but I don't particularly want to hear it right now. Power of attorney revoked, effective immediately. All of Mrs. Sullivan's accounts are to be frozen until further notice. Mr. Sullivan, you are hereby ordered to provide a complete accounting of every dollar you've spent from your mother's accounts with receipts within 30 days.
Your Honor, Derek's lawyer was practically shouting now. I'm not finished. Judge Morrison leaned forward. I'm also ordering a forensic audit of all financial transactions between Mrs. Margaret Sullivan and Mr. Derek Sullivan for the past 5 years.
If even half of what Miss Montgomery has presented here is accurate, Mr. Sullivan, you're looking at criminal charges for elderly financial abuse, identity theft, and fraud. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down like a gunshot. Derek turned to me. His face was a mask of rage and disbelief. "You bitch," he hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've just done? That money was supposed to be mine. I'm your son, your only child." "You're right," I said calmly. "You were my only child. Past tense." "Mom!" "Don't call me that. Mothers raise their children to be good people. I don't know what I raised, but it wasn't a good person. It wasn't even a decent one." His lawyer was pulling him toward the exit, whispering urgently, but Derek shook him off. "You'll regret this. You think you've won? This isn't over." "Yes," I said, "it is." I should have been celebrating. We'd won. The power of attorney was revoked. Derek's financial crimes were being investigated. Everything had gone according to plan. But I felt empty. Patricia must have seen it on my face. "Margaret, are you okay?" I keep thinking, where did I go wrong? What did I do to make him turn out like this? "You didn't do anything wrong." Patricia handed me a cup of tea. "Some people are just takers. They see love as weakness and generosity as permission. You could have been the perfect mother, which, by the way, you were, and Derek would still have turned out exactly the same." I sipped the tea. It was too hot, burned my tongue, but I didn't care. "The forensic audit," I said. "How long will that take?" 4 to 6 weeks, usually. But Margaret, Patricia hesitated. "There's something else. Something that came up during our investigation that I haven't told you yet." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Derek isn't married." I stared at her. "What are you talking about? He's been married to Jennifer for 5 years. I was at the wedding." "You were at a wedding. He married someone. But 3 years ago, they divorced. Quietly. No announcement. He's been pretending to still be married this entire time." "But why?" "Because Jennifer's parents are wealthy. Very wealthy. They've been giving Derek money. They think it's for their daughter and future grandchildren. Tens of thousands of dollars over the years." I set down my tea before I dropped it. He's been running a con. On everyone. His entire life is a lie. "It gets worse." Patricia pulled out another file. "The blonde woman he was photographed with at the steakhouse, that's Jessica Martinez. She thinks she's his fiancée. He proposed to her 4 months ago. She has no idea about Jennifer, no idea that he's financially defrauding his own mother." Oh my God. "And there's a third woman, Rachel something. They've been dating for a year. She also thinks she's exclusive with him." I couldn't speak. Couldn't think. My son wasn't just a thief. He was a con artist, a pathological liar, someone who constructed elaborate fictions and lived in them so comfortably that even his own mother hadn't seen through the mask. "Patricia," I said finally, "I want to change our strategy." "What do you mean?" I looked up, and something in my expression made her lean back slightly. "I mean, it's not enough to just get my money back. Derek needs to understand consequences, real consequences, and everyone he's conned needs to know the truth." "Margaret, what are you thinking?" I told her. Her eyes went wide, then a slow smile spread across her face. "You know what? That's not just revenge. That's justice with a side of poetic karma. I love it. But we'll need help. Then let's get help. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about every person Derek had ever lied to, stolen from, or manipulated. Every woman he'd romanced under false pretenses. Every friend he'd borrowed money from and never repaid. Derek wanted to play games.
Fine. Game on. But this time, he wasn't playing against his pushover mother. He was playing against a woman who'd spent 40 years as an ER nurse. Someone who'd learned to stay calm in crisis, think strategically under pressure, and never, ever give up on saving lives. Even if the life I was saving now was my own. Okay. If you're cheering for Margaret right now, smash that subscribe button. We drop stories like this every week, and Derek's downfall is about to get so much worse. Let's finish this. The forensic audit took 5 weeks. 5 weeks where I went about my life as if nothing had changed. Went to work, came home, lived in the house that Derek had tried to steal from under me. But underneath that normal surface, Patricia and her team were building something beautiful. Something devastating. They called it the Consequence Project. Week 1, we contacted Jennifer, Derek's ex-wife. At first, she didn't want to talk. Then Patricia mentioned the financial fraud, and suddenly Jennifer was very interested in talking. Turned out Derek had cleaned out their joint accounts before filing for divorce, leaving her with nothing. She'd been too embarrassed to report it. She wasn't embarrassed anymore. Week 2. We found Rachel and Jessica, the 2 women who thought they were engaged to Derek. Patricia invited them both to a coffee shop. Same coffee shop, same time. Watching them realize they were dating the same man was like watching someone's entire worldview shatter in real time. They weren't embarrassed either. Week 3, we tracked down 11 different people Derek owed money to. Friends, former co-workers, his college roommate who'd co-signed an apartment lease, only to discover Derek had never paid rent and destroyed the guy's credit. We showed them the forensic audit results. The number kept growing. Derek hadn't stolen $242,000 from just me. When you added up everyone else he'd conned, the number was closer to about $430,000. Week 4. The forensic accountant Patricia hired finished her report. It was 147 pages long, single-spaced with appendices. Week 5, we filed charges, not just civil charges, criminal charges. Elderly financial abuse, identity theft, wire fraud, mail fraud. The DA looked at Patricia's evidence and basically said, "When can we arrest him?" The answer was Thursday, 7 a.m., at Derek's house, with a warrant in hand. They chose the hour they knew he'd be home. I wasn't there for the arrest, but Jennifer was. She filmed it. Derek being led out in handcuffs while his neighbors watched, his face red with rage and humiliation, him screaming that this was a mistake, that he'd done nothing wrong, that his crazy mother was making up lies. Jennifer posted the video on Facebook with a very detailed caption explaining exactly what Derek had done to me, to her, to Jessica and Rachel, to all 11 people he'd borrowed money from and never repaid. The video went viral. 2.3 million views in 48 hours. Derek's insurance company saw it, fired him immediately. His apartment landlord saw it, evicted him. The bank moved on his mortgaged house soon after. His country club saw it, revoked his membership. Every bridge he'd ever built burned in a matter of days. Derek took a plea deal.
His lawyer told him he'd lose at trial, the evidence was too overwhelming, and he'd get the maximum sentence, 20 years. With the plea deal, he got 8 years, with restitution. All about $430,000. He'd be 46 when he got out, middle-aged, with a felony record, no career, no reputation, no one waiting for him. I sat in the courtroom and watched him be sentenced. He didn't look at me, not once. Good. The restitution payment started coming. Derek was making 47 cents an hour working in the prison laundry. 90% of those earnings went to restitution. At that rate, it would take centuries to repay. But that wasn't the real payment. The real payment was what happened next. I sold my house, the one that Derek had tried to put a home equity line on, got $285,000 for it, bought a smaller condo near the beach for $140,000, took the remaining $145,000, added it to what I'd hidden in the trust account, and suddenly I had $193,000. Plus a $30,000 lump sum pension catch-up HR helped me recover from an old employer I'd forgotten about, bringing it to $223,000. Not quite the $200,000 Derek had stolen from my retirement account at once, but enough to breathe again. And then I did something Derek would never have expected. I forgave Jennifer's debt. The $30,000 Derek had stolen from her in their divorce. Consider it paid, I wrote in the letter. Not by him, by someone who understands. I tracked down the 11 people Derek had conned. I covered $152,000 of what he owed others. The court's restitution will handle the rest. Some tried to refuse, said it wasn't my responsibility. I paid them anyway. I told them, Derek created these debts, but I'm ending them. Consider it closure. By the time I finished, I had $41,000 left. Enough to retire, not luxuriously, but comfortably, on my terms. I'm 63 now, retired, living in my beach condo with a view of the ocean I couldn't have afforded before. Derek is in year 1 of his 8-year sentence. He's written me 4 letters. I've read none of them. Return to sender every time. Patricia tells me he's trying to appeal. Good luck with that. Jennifer remarried. Rachel started a nonprofit helping fraud victims. Jessica went back to school. The 11 people Derek conned, some struggled, some thrived. All of them healed. And me? I learned something Derek never could understand. You can steal someone's money, but you can't steal their dignity. Not unless they let you. Derek thought he was so smart, thought he'd figured out how to game the system, how to take advantage of the people who loved him. But here's what he didn't count on. The system fights back, and so do mothers. Not the doormat mother he thought I was. The real mother. The one who'd survived poverty, abandonment, and decades of exhaustion. The one who'd always been strong. Derek had just been too stupid to notice. I sit on my balcony now, watching the sunset over the ocean, and I think about that morning Derek told me my paycheck was going into his account. How confident he was. How certain. How wrong. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. Revenge is best served with legal documents, forensic accountants, and a mother who refused to be a victim. Derek wanted my money? He got 8 years instead, and I got my life back. And that is how you serve justice. Smash subscribe, tell me your city in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. We drop stories like this every week. Never bet against a mother with a plan, and never underestimate a mother with receipts.